Disclaimer: this program contains graphic descriptions of real crimes. Viewer discretion is advised. All parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty in court. The lawyer who defended his own killer, you don't forget the sound that kills a city's faith. Two quick pops on a winter street, and a good man falls, ink leaking from a broken pen like the truth trying to get out. His last breath isn't a name, it isn't a prayer, it's a warning, margin. He's the lawyer who taught silence to cut sharper than any question. The lawyer who once saved a man the city swore was a monster. Tonight he dies on the sidewalk with his notebook open, killed by someone he already defended, or worse, someone he understood. The office didn't have clocks. It had a metronome, tick, a room of soft lamps, case binders splayed like ribs, and a leather notebook with careful margins, talk. Marcus Hale, voice low, thumb on a handheld recorder, because he believed the truth only came out when you gave it somewhere gentle to land. He was alone when the buzzer rasped. After hours, he said to the empty room, a habit of his. He clicked the recorder on anyway. Hale, 1 a.m, December 19th. He pressed the intercom. Yes, a breath, then a voice with soot around the edges. I was told you helped the ones people already buried. You've got 10 seconds to convince me you're not selling a miracle cure. Marcus said, not unkindly. I'm selling a confession, the voice said, or no, a correction. Marcus buzzed him in. The elevator coughed the stranger onto the 4th floor and left him there, a thin man under a heavy coat, rain pinned to his shoulders like medals. Late 20s, maybe 30, hands calloused, posture folded small the way people learn to fold when uniforms enter rooms. The man glanced at the metronome, then at the wall of framed acquittals, like he was cataloging a species he'd only seen in books. Close the door, Marcus said, in your name, Caleb. The stranger said, Caleb Reed. The name hit the room like a plate set down too hard. Old Briar had been on fire all fault. Tenants posting flyers, landlords posting evictions, the news searching for balance and finding brickbats instead. Caleb Reed was the EMT they'd pulsed across headlines 2 nights ago. Blood on shoes, gun in dumpster, landlord dead on the stairs. The city wanted a shape to blame. It liked how neatly Caleb fit. You've already got a public defender, Marcus said. He knew because he'd read the docket while the kettle boiled. And a DA who wants to use you to teach a lesson. I need someone who knows how to make a mess, Caleb said, eyes flicking to the metronome again. And clean it up. You kill him, Marcus asked. I found him, Caleb said, no flinch. Gun was near the rail. I kicked it stupid. Someone screamed. Cops treated coincidence like destiny. Sit, Marcus said. Start at the beginning. Caleb sat the way people sit after months of standing, cautiously, like the chair might reject him. He rolled his shoulders once and began with the call, an anonymous tip about a wellness check at the old Briar walk-up everyone knew and nobody loved. Door ajar, paint still wet where a tenant had been marking leaks, a groan from the stairwell, a shot upstairs, single, then silence spreading out like ink in water. He ran up, shoes sliding through paint, and the world turned into angles. A body twisted on the landing, one bullet neat, one ricochet carving a crescent through plaster. The gun by the rail, the instinctive kick. The neighbor with the scream that told the building what to think. He told it the way medics tell, flat, sparing, like emotion costs oxygen. Marcus wrote as he spoke, margin notes blooming in a neat column, anonymous call. Wet paint, ricochet path, he underlined ricochet twice. Anyone hate you enough to gift wrap you a murder? Marcus asked. Anyone in uniform resent you for treating overdoses like patients instead of problems? Sure, Caleb said. But resentments don't vacuum 2 minutes of security footage into thin air. Marcus's pen paused mid-stroke. 2 minutes. Camera on the ground floor. Caleb said, gap from 11, 56 to 11, 58. Building manager said glitch. I said miracle. Marcus looked up. That word again, miracle, not a fan. Caleb said, I like what you like. Procedure, tick. Marcus felt the room tilt, a familiar tilt, the one that meant the case was already assembling itself out of fragments. He'd seen the DA press hint, open and shut. He hated that phrase the way sailors hate a quiet sea. Open and shut, in his experience, meant someone had slammed a door on the part of the story that didn't fit the sermon. Stand, Marcus said. Caleb blinked, stood. Marcus walked him to the tape outline he'd laid on the rug that afternoon. The staircase dimensions scaled out in blue painter's tape, rail height marked in black. It wasn't for show. He built rooms when the city handed him riddles, then walked suspects through them until the floor squeaked where the lie lived. Here, Marcus said, tapping the rail with his knuckle. Where did you see the gun? There, Caleb said, pointing, by the post. Kick from which foot? Right. Marcus knelt, eye lined to the plaster crescent he'd chalked earlier. And the body head here, shoulder there. The kill shot came from above, slightly downward, the ricochet, awkward unless someone wanted it to look like panic. You think staged. Caleb said, I think cities stage themselves and call it justice. Marcus said softly, I think physics hates theater. He stood, dusted chalk from his palm, and studied the man who had come for a miracle but kept insisting on procedure. Caleb's eyes were a color that changed when the light did. He wore clean boots, polished past vanity into ritual. When he relaxed, which he rarely did, his fingers drifted to his EMT shears in his coat pocket, a subconscious check, the way smokers pat for lighters. You polish those? Marcus asked, nodding at the pocket. Blood leaves a rusty perfume if you let it sit. Caleb said, almost apologetic. Lemon oil cuts it. Marcus didn't write that down. He let it float in the air and settle where it wanted. Here's what will happen, Marcus said. The DA will claim your motive, anger at a landlord. Righteousness turned into a revolver. They'll call your calm a mask. They'll say the blood on your shoes wasn't from slipping in paint, but from stepping where you shouldn't. They'll wave the gun in front of the jury like it has a memory. We will not dance with that. We will build a room instead. Timeline, angles, missing minutes, and that footprint in paint by the body that does not fit your shoes. Caleb exhaled, a sound like a door unsticking. You saw that. I make a living seeing the nail that isn't hammered. Marcus said, but I need to know if I'm building for a man who tripped into a storm, or a man who carries storms under his coat. Caleb's mouth twitched, a smile that didn't belong to happiness. I carry bandages. The metronome ticked once, twice, as if it had an opinion. Marcus turned it down. Okay, he said. We'll start with the foundation. Every minute from 8 p.m. to midnight, everyone you spoke to, every hallway you crossed, and then we'll ask for the footage the state forgot how to find. They'll say it's gone, Caleb said. They always do, Marcus replied, but absence is a kind of architecture too. Juries can live in it if you show them where the windows are. Caleb sat again, shoulders relaxing a fraction. Why help me? Because the state likes cathedrals, Marcus said. From far away they look holy. Up close you see the nails. My job is to make people step closer. Caleb nodded, a small dip of the chin like he'd found a rhythm he could keep time to. How much? You can afford me, Marcus said. Or you think you can't, and I do it anyway. Either way, you'll pay with honesty. Caleb's gaze moved to the notebook. Honesty is heavy. I've got shelves, Marcus said. Outside, the rain turned indecisive, then quit. Somewhere down the block, a siren cleared its throat and decided to be quiet. Marcus clicked the recorder off and slid the notebook toward Caleb. Write the names you don't want to say out loud, he said. People you called. People who called you, anyone who'd celebrate a landlord's funeral with fireworks. Caleb held the pen like it might judge him. Then he wrote block letters, tidy. Marcus watched the list arrive, each name a nail. Most he knew, one he didn't. He circled it lightly in pencil so the paper wouldn't feel the pressure. D. Harrow, tenant, enforcer, ghost, who's Harrow? Marcus asked. Caleb's eyes went distant, as if he'd stepped into a memory he didn't like. A man who knocks on doors and calls it asking, "Did he knock on yours?" Everyone's, Caleb said. Marcus made a margin note, "Doctrine may be the trap." It was a reminder to himself more than a case strategy. Don't let the prosecution decide what the story is. Then exhaust yourself arguing inside their walls. Build your own. He slid the pen back, closed the notebook, and felt the case's first click, that private little sound where the puzzle's edge pieces align. "Tomorrow we pull floor plans," he said. "We talk to the painter. We find the gap in the footage and the person who likes gaps. We follow Harrow until he circles back to you or disappears into the part of the city where names stop being names." "And if none of that works?" Caleb asked. "It will," Marcus said, "but if it doesn't, I'll teach the jury to hear physics. They're better students than you think." Caleb stood, coat creaking. He looked at the metronome a final time. "That thing soothing or a threat?" "Both," Marcus said. "Like truth?" Caleb offered a hand. Marcus took it. The shake was precise, neither desperate nor limp. A medic's handshake, present, measured, used to holding weight without making a show of it. "Thank you," Caleb said. "For the room." Marcus watched him leave, the office swallowing the click of the door like a secret. He rewound the recorder, played back the last 4 minutes, stopped on the word miracle, on the phrase security gap. On the way, Caleb's voice never once wavered, even when the story asked it to. He set the metronome to a slower tempo, slid the notebook into the space on the shelf reserved for cases that would put knives behind headlines, wrote one more note in the margin before the ink could dry crooked. "Defense is a mirror." Underlined once. Tick-tock. A city rehearsed its rage outside. Inside, Marcus began to build. Morning took Old Briar in the ugliest light it had. The walk-up looked like a chipped tooth on a gray face, mailboxes yawning open, a flyer half ripped that said "Know Your Rights" under a landlord's warning taped over it like a bandage. Marcus arrived with his leather notebook and a canvas bag that held chalk, blue painter's tape, a pocket level, and thread. He didn't bring dramatics to crime scenes. He brought rulers. Inside, the stairwell still smelled like last night, wet paint, shoe rubber, and the metallic breath of panic that lingers after sirens leave. Someone had set a square of cardboard over the paint tray on the landing, a mercy that came 2 hours too late. "Excuse me," a voice said, soft but direct. A woman stepped from 2B with a roller speared through a plastic bag. Mid-50s work shirt flecked white. "If you're here to blame my paint, blame the leak that never got fixed." Marcus showed his card. "I'm not here to blame, I'm here to measure." She relaxed a notch. "Rosa Alvarez, I told the police what I saw, or didn't. I heard a bang, then another, then a scream I'm ashamed to say was mine. The tray was here last night," Marcus asked. Rosa nodded. "I marked the ceiling where it drips." I stepped away to answer the buzzer. "Someone doing a wellness check," they said. And when I came back, someone's boot had made a moon in my tray and a comet across my landing. She pointed. The crescent streak in the plaster wall glared back, proof that fear draws its own astronomy. "Do you remember the boot?" Marcus asked. "Tread pattern, size." Rosa's mouth twitched into a memory. "Big, star at the heel worn down. Man who wears them walks on his heels. I clean those stairs 3 times a week. I know who walks like what." Marcus knelt at the tray, lifted the cardboard, and studied the dried imprint. "Not perfect, but enough. Deep heel, wide forefoot, the ghost of a 5. Point star ground to a smudge." He measured roughly with his tape. 13. He murmured, jotting. "Paint print size 13. Star heel worn." Caleb's intake sheet said size 10. "Did you see anyone on the stairs before the shots?" Marcus asked. "I saw shadows and stupid decisions." Rosa said, "I heard a man tell another man to just sign the thing like the thing was a choice." She looked at the tray. "I should have brought the paint in. I thought neighbors would be neighbors." A tired shrug. "My mistake." A door upstairs opened and closed hard. Marcus followed the sound to the 3rd floor landing where a narrow hall bled into the roof access door. No tenants was scrawled across the metal in paint that wanted to be authoritative. The building manager, a pencil of a woman named Peltz, stood there with a clipboard like a shield. "We've had quite enough," she said, chin up. "I need access to your cameras," Marcus said. "Detectives already took copies." Peltz said, "There was a glitch at 11:56. Power dip. Happens all the time. Not our fault if the city's grid hiccups. Power dips don't produce clean 2-minute blackouts," Marcus said gently. He kept his voice in that lawyer's register that says he will be reasonable until people give him a reason not to be. "They stutter, they smear. Where's the DVR? Maintenance closet," she said, but didn't move. "Keys?" he asked. She weighed the options, then fumbled on her ring. "You can look. You can't touch." He looked. The DVR hummed behind mop handles, its little green LED insisting everything was fine. Marcus squinted at the log screen. The gap was full of nothing. A block labeled clip 231, missing, and something else. A line that read user, ext-admin login 11:48, logout 12:02. Who's ext-admin? Marcus asked. Peltz shifted, clipboard squeaking under her grip. "My contractor for the security system. He helps with resets. He was here earlier to check the feed after the police left. A name," she swallowed, "Deacon Harrow, contracted through the Landlords Association." Marcus wrote it clean, D. Harrow security access on site, 11:48-12:02. He didn't look at Peltz as he asked, "Does Mr. Harrow also fix leaks?" "He fixes what owners pay for," she said, chin back up, which is not apparently ceilings. Back in the stairwell, Marcus set to work. He taped a thin line from the railing post to the plaster wound where the ricochet had bitten. Then another from the imaginary shooter's position to the kill shot trajectory he'd diagrammed from the Me summary. He tied thread to the tape, pulled it taut, and watched the geometry tell its story. Rosa watched him with the wary interest of a neighbor who has seen many men pretend to solve things. "What does the string say?" "That physics hates theater," Marcus said. He lifted the thread, then stepped onto the rail, one hand on the post, testing the angle with his eyes. If the kill shot comes slightly downward here and the ricochet cuts there, the shooter either crouched at this height or stood on the rail to make the panic. Path look right. No one in a hurry balances on a banister. Someone staging an accident might. Rosa's face tightened. "You think he balanced?" "I think someone rehearsed," Marcus said, stepping down. He took a slow breath, thinking not of Caleb but of ritual. He pressed his thumb into his ring finger, an old grounding trick, and kept building the room. Next door, 3C cracked open. A woman with sleep, flat hair and suspicion in her eyes peered out. "You the one who asks better questions," she said. "I try." Marcus said, "MS. Deanna," she said. She opened the door a little wider. "I'm the Scream. I'm not proud, but I am honest. It was dark, but I saw a shape move like a man who knew this stairwell better than I do. Fast, confident. He went up, then back down, then gone. Before the first shot or after? Before," she said. "The shots came like punctuation. What kind of shoes?" Marcus asked. "Big," she said immediately. "Heels were loud before the paint made them quiet." "Did you see his face?" "Only his habit," she said. He touched his pocket like he was making sure something was still there. Which side? She touched her right coat pocket. A medic's check, or a cop's, or a nervous man's. But habits are fingerprints if you catch them early. Marcus thanked her and slid a card under her door in case her memory remembered anything else later, as memories love to do when no one is watching. He returned to the landing and took pictures of the tray, the crescent in the wall, the scuffed rail top where a shoe, A.B., had once gripped. He noted a faint scent in the air he couldn't immediately place. Cleaner, citrus, sharp, not Rosa's paint. He let it file itself wherever it wanted. On the sidewalk, Miriam was waiting with 2 coffees and a look that said the morning had already sprinted. Harrow, she said, handing him the one he liked. Plain, no sugar. Harrow, Marcus confirmed. External admin access to the DVR at the exact 2-minute miracle. Contract file says he's on retainer with 6 buildings owned by the same shell company, Miriam said, flicking through her phone. Voted least popular man on a tenant forum, specializes in compliance visits that look like intimidation, worked 3 years as unlicensed security before someone taught him how to wear a collared shirt. Boot size, Marcus asked. Internet doesn't have his feet, she said, but I have a friend at a storage facility who says he prefers star, heel work boots. That's thin, but it rhymes. Rosa says size 13 with a worn star heel, Marcus said. And Deanna says the man touched his right pocket like he was checking a tool. Gun, Miriam asked, or habit, Marcus said. Caleb checks his shears the same way, but his shoes are 10 flat-tread medic sneakers. He would have left a different comment. DA will say he borrowed boots, Miriam said. DA will say anything that makes the room simpler, Marcus replied. Our job is to complicate without confusing. He handed her the photos. String says the shooter stood on the rail to make the ricochet work. Balanced, Miriam said. That's performative or practiced, Marcus said. Find me everything Harrow practices. Miriam nodded, eyes already far away in the search. What about the anonymous wellness call that sent Caleb there? We get the 911 audio, Marcus said. We get tower pings. If that call was placed by a phone that's ever been near Harrow, we'll smell the glue. He looked back at the windows of the walk-up. A woman held a baby. A man squinted at the morning like it owed him an apology. Cities make enemies the way trees make leaves, but not every enemy is the one with the headline, ready motive. Some are the ones with keys. They split the list. Miriam went to chase Harrow through contract paper and parking lot cameras. Marcus went to visit the Landlord Association office that pretended not to know Harrow's last name when tenants called. In the lobby, a receptionist smiled the way people smile when they're paid to turn no into velvet. Sir, our contractors are third party. We don't hold their records on site. If you have a subpoena, I do, Marcus said, and slid a folded packet across the counter. He did not technically have it yet. He had a judge who hated sloppiness and respected Marcus's ability to be surgical. She'd sign in an hour. In the meantime, the receptionist read the letterhead like it had the power of God. Harrow's full name is Deacon Harrow, she said. He's efficient. Efficient at what? Marcus asked. Compliance, she said carefully, and transport. Transport of what? Paperwork, she said too quickly, the way people say paperwork when they mean people. Marcus left with 3 dates, 2 addresses, and 1 photograph of Harrow taken at a holiday party where the gift exchange looked like a squad car auction. In the photo, Harrow's shoulders sloped. His right hand ghosted his coat pocket. His boots had a 5-point star at the heel. Back on the street, Marcus called Miriam. Tell me you've got good news. Better, she said. I've got a pattern. Harrow's van plate pings outside the walk-up at 11:40 p.m. Leaves at 12:04 a.m. Guess what else happens at 11:48? External admin logs into the DVR, Marcus said, and 8 minutes later, she continued, a second login from the same ex-admin at a different building he services 2 blocks away. Like he's building an alibi trail of glitches. Marcus stopped walking. Sometimes a case changes temperature over a single sentence. This one just had. Push the subpoena. He said, I want to know if his glitch routine always costs exactly 2 minutes. And Caleb, Miriam asked. His timeline holds, Marcus said, but timelines are only as honest as the clocks. We'll make theirs sing the right tune. He closed his eyes and saw the stairwell again, the rail, the thread, the arc of a bullet that wanted to tell the truth if someone would stop making it perform. He smelled the faintest citrus he'd caught by the rail and pressed his tongue to his teeth, a habit that caught him when his brain wanted to run ahead of his proof. Marcus, Miriam's voice softened. You're doing the thing. What thing? Touching the edge of what you know before you can prove it. He exhaled. Fear lives there. So does instinct. She said, we'll build the bridge between them. That's the job, he said, and hung up. Back at the office, he set the recorder on the desk, clicked it on, and spoke like a man leaving breadcrumbs for himself. December 20th. The stairwell lied. The paint told the truth. Harrow has keys to the city's shadows and likes to leave his fingerprints in the shape of absence. Begin with absence. He wrote one more note in the margin and drew a thin ladder of boxes beside it, his private way of promising himself he'd climb carefully. Footprint DVR logs Harrow Van 9, 111 call origin rail scuff chemical test. He paused on that last parenthesis, the citrus, the clean that isn't clean, a ritual. He underlined the word ritual once, then closed the notebook as the metronome tapped a slower, steadier time. Outside, the city rehearsed outrage. Inside, the room he was building found its corners, square, plumb, ready to hold the weight of whatever truth showed up next. Rosa kept her shoes by the door like evidence. 2 pairs, the church flats and the paints, bladdered work sneakers that had carried her up and down Old Briar's spine for 10 years. When Marcus asked, she set the sneakers on a sheet of brown paper with the solemnity of a witness placing a hand on a Bible. Not my comet, she said, arms folded. Mine are size 8. I'm offended on behalf of physics. Marcus smiled at the line, half joke, half oath, and traced the outsole with a pencil. A tidy herringbone tread, no star heel, nothing that could birth the crescent roaring across her wall. He bagged the paper outline, thanked her for the loan of 2 minutes and a laugh, and carried the copy down to the street like a tiny verdict. In the lab, the text name was Dwayne, and his gift was turning hunches into numbers. He wore his hair in a coil that looked like a question mark. You brought me a whisper, he said, peering at the swab Marcus had taken from the rail's top. Want me to make it sing? Just hum, Marcus said. It smelled like cleaner, not Rosa's paint, citrus. Tell me if I made that up. Dwayne ran the sample and made a satisfied noise. Not made up, trace limonene, trace eucalyptus, household blend but not the cheap stuff, and, this is weird, a micro residue of an oil-based polish, the kind people use on tools or furniture or to wipe metal clean. Lemon oil, Marcus said. Dwayne shrugged. If you want it to be. Does it want to be? Marcus asked. Dwayne grinned. Counselor, the molecules don't care what we call them. But if it quacks like Tuesday's shift disinfectant married to a boutique lemon polish, I'm comfortable writing lemon oil present in the notes. Write it, Marcus said. He didn't say what the word did to his stomach, how it turned certainty into a hallway he'd rather not walk down. He didn't tell Dwayne about a medic with spotless shears and rituals that made mess look like order. He wrote limonene/OIL residue, ale in his book, and underlined it once gently so the paper wouldn't tear. On the way back, he stopped at McTeer's Hard, where, because the old man there knew more about boots than most cops knew about warrants. Marcus laid the brown paper outline and a photo of the paint crescent on the counter, star heel. McTeer said without being asked, that's a Killian forge tread, they stamp a 5, point on the back rubber so job crews can tell their own prints at a glance. He squinted. Size 13, maybe 14. Folks who wear 'em tend to stomp. Men who stand too long pretend it makes them taller. Who buys them? Marcus asked. Men who call themselves contractors. McTeer said, ringing up a woman's box of nails without breaking eye contact. Security, too. Guys who need to look like they know how to fix things even when the only thing they fix is people's silence. Marcus left with a photocopied catalog page circled in blue. Killian Forge/model, Bastion/heel stamp, 5-star. On the sidewalk, he checked his watch and called Miriam, Harrow's feet. She asked by way of hello, Killian Forge man, if he's the type. Marcus said, star heel, size 13. McTeer says they sell them near where men who like to knock by their door knockers. Miriam blew out a breath that clipped into a laugh. Your poetry gets mean when you're right. I have something too. Tower data. The 911 call. came from a prepaid, she said. Bounced off a tower that covers both the walk-up and the strip where Harrow parks his van when he wants coffee and applause from no one. I can't tie the burner to him yet, but the ping history puts it within 200 meters of that van 3 times last week. Miracles shouldn't have patterns. Marcus said, they do now. Miriam said, oh, and one more thing. That second building Harrow glitched at 12:08. I got the super to let me peek at his DVR. Guess what's missing? 2 minutes. Marcus said. 37 seconds. Miriam said. Looks like he's refining his style. Marcus turned that over. 2 minutes here, 37 seconds there. Enough to erase, not enough to announce. A man practicing erasure the way a dancer practices steps. Get me the audio of the 911 call, Marcus said. I want to hear the way it lies. The clerk at emergency comms slid a pair of headphones across the counter with the look people give lawyers when they wish they were allowed to clap. Call was crisp, male, mid-register, the vowels scrubbed to neutral like someone who'd moved around too much or watched too much local news. Yes, hello, wellness check. The voice said, careful, helpful. 3rd floor, Old Briar walk up. He was yelling earlier, now it's quiet, doors ajar. What's your name, sir? Don't want trouble. The caller said, but it's not right to leave it alone. Click, the operator tried the number again. Disconnected, the kind of disconnection that feels like a shrug. Back at the office, Caleb was waiting in the hall, hands inside his pockets like birds hiding their heads in their own wings. You shouldn't be here without counsel. Marcus said, then remembered he was the counsel and hated the sentence on principle. Bad habit. Caleb said, I wanted to give you this. He held out a plastic bag with a pair of shoe covers, blue and crinkled. They gave me these at the scene. My shoes never touched the paint. Thought you'd want to see if the paint touched them anyway. Marcus took the bag. You kept them. I keep everything, Caleb said. Ritual. The word landed like a penny on a drum. Marcus nodded at the chair. Sit. Caleb remained standing. You found something. Maybe. Marcus said, did you ever meet a man named Deacon Harrow? Works for the Landlord Association. Likes cameras and compliance. Caleb's face didn't move at first, then a muscle near his eye flickered, small, quick, like a signal between 2 ships at night. He came to my building in August, said my unit violated occupancy, asked if I wanted to keep the ambulance from knowing where I slept. He smiled like it was a favor. Caleb's jaw ticked. I told him he could leave. He asked if I wanted help moving. Did he know the walk-up? He knows all the stairs in this neighborhood. Caleb said, men like that learn the angles. Does he wear big boots with stars on the heels? Marcus asked. Caleb blinked, then nodded once. 13s, I notice feet. You learn to when you're carrying a body downstairs and don't want to get stepped on. Did he touch his pocket a lot? Marcus asked, like a man counting his teeth. Caleb said. Right side. The room pulled a little tighter around them, threads drawing to corners. Marcus almost asked then, almost said the thing he hadn't wanted to say since the rail gave up its citrus and Dwayne turned a hunch into a noun. Do you use lemon oil because it works or because it absolves you for liking things too clean? He swallowed it. The question wasn't a bridge yet. It was a hole. 2 more. He said instead. Anyone who would want the landlord dead besides the whole block, and anyone who would want you in handcuffs so their own hands stayed clean. Caleb looked at the window and didn't see it. The landlord had a second set of books for move-out fees. People paid cash in the stairwell, so it wasn't extortion, it was expediting. He paused, and Harrow, he wanted a win. He wanted to show a city who was in charge of exits. Marcus wrote cash fees. Stairwell/control the exit. Then he slid the shoe covers into an evidence envelope and labeled them with the neat script of a man who believes in the future's need to trust the past. When Caleb left, the citrus lingered in the air like a memory of a different room. Marcus sat with it and let himself admit what the note in his margin had already confessed. He had a suspect with a motive, a pattern, and boots that matched a comet. He also had a client whose rituals rhymed with the residue on a rail. Sometimes the city hands you a clean enemy. Sometimes it hands you a mirror and dares you to look. The phone rang. Miriam, you asked if our miracle had a pattern, she said. I think I found the mold. Harrow's alibis are all framed by glitches that last between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. 3 buildings, 4 weeks. He wipes exactly the moments where men with grievances pass each other on stairs. Marcus exhaled through his teeth. Men with grievances, or men with orders, both can wear the same boots. Miriam said, I also pulled Harrow's concealed carry application. He was denied in county, approved in state after an appeal letter from, wait for it, the Landlord Association's council. A man who knocks on doors and calls it asking, Marcus said, and Miriam added, Harrow's van was parked 2 blocks from your office exactly 3 weeks ago. Timestamp puts it at 1 in the morning. Marcus looked at the metronome. It didn't move faster. He did. Set up a meet, he said. We're going to ask Harrow why he believes in disappearing minutes. You want a friendly? She asked. I want him to think I'm building his cathedral, Marcus said. It's always easier to spot the nails when the architect is bragging about the arches. He hung up and wrote one last line in his margin before he could lose the nerve. If ritual makes a man feel righteous, watch his hands when something bleeds. He closed the notebook and for a second set his palm on the cover like a blessing. Outside, Old Briar's wind practiced its cold. Inside, the room held. Next step, the man with the keys and the star heels. Deacon Harrow liked his coffee places the way he liked his stairwells. Narrow, easy to control, every exit visible. He chose a shop with a single door and a mirror behind the bar that let him watch his own back without turning. When Marcus walked in, Harrow was already seated where the mirror cut him into halves, front, facing charm and a reflected profile that didn't bother pretending. Counselor, he said, rising a fraction. Star, heeled boots, 13 or a proud 12. Right hand ghosted his coat pocket, the habitual pat of a man who believed the thing inside was what made him real. Your assistant said you were curious about compliance. I'm curious about pattern, Marcus said, taking the seat opposite. He set his leather notebook down like a placemat and clicked his pen. No recorder on the table. He'd started it in his pocket a block away. He believed in ritual, too. Harrow smiled slow. It was a smile you could hang a warning sign on. Pattern is what separates a pro from a hobbyist, or a staging from a truth, Marcus said mildly. He let his gaze drop to the boots, then up to the knuckles, faint pale lines like healed wire cuts. You work with your hands, men who don't work with their hands. Harrow said, make rules for men who do. And men with keys make their own rules. Marcus said, the barista slid over 2 mugs without being asked. Harrow cupped his like a trophy. The air around him had a brightness that didn't come from soap. Citrus cut with something resinous. Marcus filed the confirmation where the other confirmations lived. So, Harrow said, Old Briar's cathedral burned down. I hear your boy walked out of the smoke smiling. He didn't smile, Marcus said. And I haven't called anyone my boy since mock trial. Harrow's smile sharpened. You ever notice how these neighborhoods confuse gratitude with immunity? You put your hand into the city's machine and teach it that it's wrong to bite. Then it bites you anyway. You sound disappointed. Marcus said, like the machine owes you a thank you note. It owes me order. Harrow said, almost tender. His right hand checked his pocket again, thumb grazing the edge of whatever lived there. My job is to remind people where the exits are. Like calling wellness checks. Marcus asked, watching his eyes instead of his mouth. A beat, not long, but long enough for honesty to clear its throat before the lie took the microphone. I'm very wellness-oriented. Harrow said, of course. Marcus said. He flipped the notebook open and slid a photocopy across the table, the DVR log with ex-admin framed in a neat rectangle. Your login, he said, 11:48 to 12:02, contractual maintenance, Harrow said without looking. Our systems glitch, I unglitch. Fascinating that the glitch ate exactly the 2 minutes when the stairwell tells the wrong story, Marcus said, and that it happens in various flavors at buildings where someone later needs the luxury of not being seen. Harrow let the paper sit there, his eyes drifting to the mirror. He wasn't admiring himself. He was measuring distances. Door to alley, barista to panic button, table to floor. Men who rehearse are good at math. "You're building a cathedral," he said finally, leaning in. His breath held that bright edge again, cleaned metal, cut lemon, an aftertaste that didn't belong to coffee, but I can see the nails. "I like my nails where juries can see them," Marcus said. "Hiding them is how shacks pretend to be churches." Harrow's laugh was an economical thing. 3 syllables, no teeth. "You and I aren't enemies." "I believe that," Marcus said. "I think you're a man who wants the story to swing his way. I'm a man who nails the swing to a hinge." He tapped the DVR log. "Here's the hinge, and here's a second one." He slid a printed tower, ping map across the table. The dots gathered near Harrow's van, then near the cup. The wellness caller ghosted, but ghosts have habits. Harrow's gaze flicked down, then up, already bored with the page. "You think because I was near a thing, I touched it. I think because you had the keys, you unlocked it," Marcus said. He let his voice go quiet in the way that made men either lean in or stand up. Harrow leaned, "And I think you stood on a railing like a gymnast to make physics apologize for your story." A tiny muscle in Harrow's jaw ticked. Right hand pocket. He wasn't nervous. He was checking that the ritual still held. "You think I balanced. I think you practiced," Marcus said. 37 seconds gone in one building, 2 minutes gone in another, always just enough to give a man with a grievance the contour of innocence. "You don't pull triggers, you curate." Harrow's eyes warmed the way a snake's might in a sun patch. "You're smarter than your suit, smarter than your boots," Marcus said gently. He lifted his mug and set it down exactly centered on the saucer. "Precision for precision. Tell me something. When you polish your tools, whatever you carry in that pocket, does the lemon wipe keep the stench from following you home, or does it just let you pretend the stench belongs to someone else?" For the first time, Harrow's grin died on the way to his eyes. It was a small death, but Marcus saw it. "I'm not the man you want," Harrow said. "You want the one who owed the landlord money. You want the one who knew the back stair. You want your medic, Caleb," Marcus said. "Reed," Harrow said, "always neat. Men like that resent mess so much they become it." "You met him," Marcus said, watching the mirror now, not Harrow. In the glass, a man at the counter pretended not to listen. In the glass, the door showed street. In the glass, Harrow's right hand ghosted his pocket again. "I meet a lot of men who think they're strong because they keep their kits in order," Harrow said. "He told me once," this was August, "that he was tired of the machine. I told him machines don't get tired. And then you called him a getaway," Marcus said, "one that looks like compassion." Harrow leaned back, palms flat on the table, claiming some kind of ownership of the wood. "Counselor, I'm going to help you. Free legal advice, reversed. Go home. Let the city sort itself. There's a reason men like me exist. It's because men like you keep confusing mercy with math." "Mercy is math," Marcus said. "It counts, and it can be wrong." The barista coughed once. Too loud, too purposeful. A cue. Harrow stood, the pocket pat again. He left a tip on the table, 2 coins and a folded microfiber cloth that had no reason to be there unless it was a reminder. "Your client kills men like that landlord every day," Harrow said, voice light. "He just uses a different tool." "Careful," Marcus said, rising too. "You're within earshot of slander." "A city this loud," Harrow said. "No one hears nuance." He shifted so his boots aligned perfectly with the door's threshold, like he practiced exits too. "I'll see you on a day that isn't today." He left with a little gust of cold air and the smell of the street riding his shoulders. Marcus sat again and stared at the cloth. It had a faint yellow sheen, a ghost of oil that caught the light when he tilted it. He bagged it, labeled it, and wrote in the margin, "Harrow leaves his sins where he thinks they won't count." Then, softer under it, "or he wants me to find them." On the walk back, a van idled 2 blocks behind him for a block too long. When he stopped to tie his shoe, it drifted past, driver invisible behind winter fog on the windshield. Star, heel prints don't show on asphalt, he thought, and felt the cold leave inside his coat. At the office, Miriam had already drawn Harrow's pattern on the whiteboard in green lines. Our man likes windows that are barely windows, she said. We can't prove he deleted the clips yet, but I got a subpoena signed. We'll have server logs by morning. Marcus set the bagged cloth in her palm. Lemon oil, he said, and something else. Dwayne will coax it. Miriam looked at him like she was measuring the temperature of his certainty. He threatened you. He rehearsed a world where I walk away, Marcus said, called it order. And you, I don't leave rooms I've measured, Marcus said. He rubbed a thumb over the notebook's edge, felt the familiar groove the way a rosary warrior might find their favorite bead. But I need you to do something that feels like leaving. Name it. Go to the DA, he said. Give them Harrow's pattern tied to the landlord case, but don't hand them Caleb as a parachute. They'll try to jump that way if we let them. You want the state to chase Harrow while you keep the jury with Caleb, Miriam said. That's two fronts. That's one war. Marcus said. Two maps. She nodded, then paused. Marcus, you're doing the other thing. What thing? Assuming you're the only one measuring. He took that. Let it land. The metronome on his shelf ticked twice in his memory, a sound his rib cage had learned to breathe with. I'll be careful, he said. He meant it like a promise and heard it like a prayer. He went back to the stairwell photos, to the thread and the angles, to the little scuff on the rail where a shoe had gripped like a hand. He listened again to the 911 call until the neutral vowels turned into fingerprints. He wrote, caller's phrasing equals wellness check industry term. Harrow or someone who sells compliance. He traced the outline of the bomb he was diffusing with a pencil so soft it barely left a mark. That night, as he left the office, the street was quiet enough to hear his own steps. 2 blocks down, a man in a coat too thin for the weather nodded at him and kept moving. Somewhere a siren decided to stay asleep. Marcus adjusted his scarf, felt for the notebook inside his coat, a different pocket from Harrow's, a different ritual, and crossed the light. Behind him, far enough to pretend coincidence, a pair of star-heeled boots stamped a pattern he'd already learned to hear. The subpoena came back like a tide, slow, heavy, carrying things the city thought it had buried. Miriam laid the printouts across the conference table until the green lines of Harrow's pattern looked like a transit map. Marcus stood over it, pen uncapped, the metronome's click an invisible pulse under the fluorescent buzz. Server logs first, Miriam said. Your ex-admin isn't just a username. It's tied to a device fingerprint. A tablet that checks in with the vendor once a week. Same MAC address at 3 buildings, same late, night window, same tidy chunk of time disappearing. Marcus traced the timestamps 11, 48-12, 02, 12, 08-12, 09, 17, 01, 13-01, 14, 02, 30. 7 seconds at the second sight. He murmured, he's learning to shave just enough. And here's the leak in his alibi, Miriam said, sliding over a photo. The second building's lobby had a fish camera Harrow didn't know about. The angle is bad, the resolution worse, but it catches a reflection in the vending machine at 12:08. That reflection, Harrow down to the slope of the shoulders and the right pocket pad. Marcus wrote reflection confirmation and underlined pocket. I gave them this, she said. I did not give them Caleb. You're merciful. Marcus said. I'm mathematical, she said. I don't like their shortcuts. Dwayne called, voice bright as ever. You sent me a microfiber from a man who likes citrus, he said. It likes him back. Tell me it sings, Marcus said. It hums, Dwayne replied. Limonene, lemon oil, trace barium and antimony, classic GSR markers, but low levels consistent with secondary transfer, also a faint signature of nitrocellulose lacquer, fancy word for gunpowder's home base. Taken together, I won't say he fired a gun, I will say this cloth touched a gun or someone who had recently fired one. Can you tell me when? Marcus asked. I can tell you I'm not a time machine, Dwayne said gently, but the citrus hasn't oxidized. It's not old. Marcus hung up and wrote, Cloth, lemon oil plus GSR secondary. Recent, he kept the letters neat. He'd learned long ago that messy notes made messy arguments, and messy arguments made jurors look at him like he was asking them to do his job. They moved to the 911 audio. Miriam had annotated it like sheet music. Listen to the vowels, she said, and ran it again. Yes, hello, wellness check. He says wellness check like someone who fills out forms for a living. He pauses before doors ajar and not before third floor. He's reading part of something and improvising the rest. Harrow's a man who loves a script, Marcus said. Improvisation is where he lets his tells slip. And now, Miriam said reluctantly, your other leak. Caleb's shift log lay beside the ambulance GPS at 11:50 p.m. He and his partner cleared a run at a shelter 6 blocks from the walk-up. At 11:54, the rig idled at a 4-way stop for 90 seconds. At 11:56 to 11:58, the magic window, it looped once around the block where the landlord would die. At 12:06, it pulled 2 blocks past Marcus's office before circling away. You're not going to like the coincidence, Miriam said. Coincidence is an ugly word for we haven't proved the link yet. Marcus said too evenly. He leaned on the table, palms flat, eyes steady. What did the partner say? Typed, map route construction. Miriam said, verbal, don't remember construction. Do remember Caleb double, checking the shears after we hit a pothole. I asked which pocket he keeps them in. She said right. Marcus's jaw worked once, the only visible sign that his insides hadn't gotten the memo about the comm. He could hear the echo of the coffee shop, the cloth hitting the table, Harrow's breath bright with cleaned metal. He could hear Caleb's uninflected voice. I keep everything. Ritual. Does the loop put him directly in front of the walk-up? Marcus asked. Close enough to call it familiar. Miriam said. Close enough that the DA will salivate. They'll say he scouted, then doubled back on foot. Marcus said. They'll say his job made him invisible. They'll say a medic's hands are steady enough to balance on a rail. They'll be wrong about at least one of those, Miriam said, but wrongness looks like confidence when you sell it fast. Marcus turned the metronome down until the clicks were almost imaginations. He could feel the hinge of the case, Harrow's curated dark, Caleb's ritual neatness, a city that prefers stories without smudges. Bring me the doorbell cam, he said, the one the cops called useless. Miriam pulled it up. Grainy bloom, blinded by the stairwell light, it caught a silhouette in profile 10 minutes before the shots. The stride was efficient, heel, heavy, the shoulders sloped. The right hand patted a pocket like a metronome of its own. Everyone in this city touches that pocket, Marcus said. He said it like a joke because he needed it to be. We can enhance gait, not ghosts. Miriam said, I'll send it to a lab I trust to tell me maybe without charging me definitely. Do it, he said. He closed his eyes and replayed the stairwell geometry again, thread taut, angle honest, physics stubborn. He imagined a man crouched on a rail because theater demanded it. He imagined another standing at the bottom, watching the scene arrive like weather. His phone buzzed. Leela Tran. He took it. You like games of chicken? She asked without hello. I like games with rules. Marcus said, I have a contractor whose device did a little midnight waltz through 3 DVR. She said, I have a lobby reflection. I have the start of a pattern. And I have your medic taking the world's most unfortunate detour. You want to trade. You're asking me to betray my client. Marcus said, I'm asking you to stop pretending he's a saint. Leela said, Harrow's a facilitator. This city is full of them, but you know as well as I do, facilitators don't pull triggers in stairwells. Sometimes they do, Marcus said, when they need to write the ending. Then give me something that makes a jury believe he had a pen in his hand, she said. Because right now, all I have is a man who cleans up other men's messes and a defendant who was where he shouldn't have been right before a man died where he shouldn't have. Your problem, Marcus said, is that shouldn't have isn't a statute. Your problem. Leila said is going to be the loop, she softened. Leila's version of it, which still had an edge. I'm not here to bully you into a plea. I'm telling you the leak you can't afford not to patch. If you don't, I will. She hung up. Marcus stood at the window and watched old Briar move, the delivery bikes, the mother dragging a bag that wanted to be a suitcase, the landlord association's sedan doing slow motion patrol. He rubbed his thumb over his ring finger and said aloud, because sometimes you have to hear yourself spend your oath. Defense is a mirror, not a blindfold. He went to the evidence envelope with Caleb's blue shoe covers, tore the seal, and held one under his nose. Paint faint, no citrus. He slid a cotton swab along the elastic cuff and bagged the swab for Dwayne with a note. Look for any transfer. Paint micro, limonene, rail residue. He added, I need you to tell me I'm not seeing what I want. The afternoon stacked itself. He interviewed the shelter staff who'd seen the ambulance that night. He caught the eye of a teenager behind the counter who said, the medic guy, the quiet one. He always checks his kit twice, makes me nervous, like he's making sure he's ready to fix something horrible. He stopped by McTeer's for a second opinion on the print. McTeer told him the Bastion model had a seam that cut the paint in a way cabs couldn't fake. The crescent on Rosa's wall had that seam. Marcus drew a small star beside Bastion and continued. At dusk, Miriam popped her head in. We got Harrow on plate readers, she said, leaving the second building at 12:09, taking Mill Street, cutting right on Baxter. It puts him 4 minutes from the walk-up at exactly the time the shots fired, and his claim. He told the DA he was home by 12:10, she said, which would require teleportation or a different definition of home. Everyone's home somewhere, Marcus said, even men who live in the cracks. Miriam hesitated. There's one more thing, off the record. A cop in patrol owes me a favor. He pulled a nothing burger traffic cam near your building a few nights after the landlord's death. Harrow's Van Cruz is your block at 1:01 a.m. Slows, then idles for a count of 10. No proof of anything, but it made my ribs feel like too much air. Marcus felt the same air. He let it pass and settle. We're not in that story, he said. We're in this one. Stories rhymes, she said. Poems rhyme, he corrected softly. Stories echo. He sat. He opened the notebook. He drew a thin ladder of boxes and filled the first 3, Harrow's device reflection plate readers. The 4th, he left blank. The 5th, he wrote in pencil, as if writing in ink would conjure the wrong thing, Caleb's Lupex, Blaine, or break. The explanation came from an unexpected quarter. The shelter's night porter called back at 9. You asked about construction. He said, there wasn't any, but the city put a sawhorse at the end of Juniper because the sinkhole hadn't been fully filled yet. People were detouring. Does your camera catch the corner? Marcus asked. It catches boredom, the porter said, and cars doing nervous L shapes. The video showed 2 cars and the ambulance drifting around the makeshift barrier like they were embarrassed for the city. The timestamp 11:54:19. The ambulance's loop was ugly but not predatory. It was the kind of loop you make when you're following orders from orange plastic. Marcus sent the clip to Miriam, who exhaled loud enough to fog the phone. Okay, she said, that plugs one hole. Not all, Marcus said. He still passes by my block later, which is not illegal. Miriam said, just literary. He almost laughed. Didn't. Tomorrow, Harrow under oath. The DA can keep pretending this is one story. We'll keep building both. He wrote a final margin note before he shut the book. Alibis leak where rituals begin. Watch for towels, tools, and turning pockets. He set the metronome to a slower tick. Outside, the neighborhood practiced sleeping. Inside, he rehearsed the questions that would either hold a mirror up to a man with keys or show Marcus something he didn't want to see. The courtroom wasn't there for a trial. It was there for a question. On the docket, it wore the dull name of a Rule 17 subpoena hearing, defense seeking documents and testimony from a third-party contractor. In the gallery, though, the air had that metallic expectancy people mistake for justice. Leila Tran sat 2 rows back, expression like a locked file. Miriam slid into the seat behind counsel table and laid her pen across a yellow pad, horizontal, the signal they used for don't chase every cat, wait for the lion. Deacon Harrow took the stand like a man climbing onto furniture he'd measured himself. Oath administered, he said, "I do," as if the phrase belonged to procedures he respected and people he didn't. Marcus approached without his usual soft glide. He wanted Harrow to feel the grain of the wood through his shoes. "Mr. Harrow," he began, "you maintain security systems at 412 Old Briar and at least 2 other buildings owned by Briar Properties, LLC. Correct, contractor," Harrow said. "External, I'm not staff. External," Marcus repeated mildly as if cataloging wildlife. "And your login name on the DVR at those sites is ex-admin." "Yes, it's a vendor default," Harrow said. "I told the owners to change it. They don't like paying for smart." "You logged into 412 Old Briar's DVR at 11:48 p.m. on the night of Mr. Voss's death," Marcus said. "You logged out at 12:02 a.m. You logged into 29 mil at 12:08 a.m. for 37 seconds. You logged into 93 Halter at 1:13 a.m. for 49 seconds. True." Harrow tilted his head as if listening to music other people couldn't hear. "If your paper says 3 logins, it must be so." "Not my paper," Marcus said and handed a copy to the clerk. "The vendors. It also says your device fingerprint, the tablet you use. Ping their servers from inside each building during those logins." Harrow's mouth pinched into something that could later be described as a smile. "Remote sessions sometimes register like that. Sometimes," Marcus said, "not these. Refresh me on your installation protocols. To clear a corrupted block, you often need physical access to press a reset on the capture unit. Don't you?" "I often do," Harrow said. "Sometimes I don't. Show me a sometimes I don't in this batch," Marcus said. He let the silence stand up and fill the aisle. "We also have a lobby reflection at 29 mil at 12:08, and plate readers putting your van 3 blocks away at 11:46 and 2 blocks away at 12:05. If this was remote magic, it's very embodied." The first laugh in the room belonged to a court reporter who choked it into a cough. Leila's jaw moved once, annoyance at the room, not the point. "Why the tidy durations?" Marcus asked, voice smaller now, almost courteous. 2 minutes here, 37 seconds there, 49 seconds later that night. Why not 3 minutes or 5? Why not none? "Because that's how long it takes to run a check," Harrow said, too fast. Then, because men who rehearse also double down, 37 seconds is enough to flush a buffer. Miriam's pen lifted. She hadn't spoken the number out loud. Neither had Marcus. The vendor logs were under seal until that morning's motion. Pressure point noted. "The state calls them glitches." Marcus said, "You call them checks. I call them windows. Who steps through, Mr. Harrow?" Harrow met Marcus's eyes for the first time. Properly met them without the mirror. "People who don't respect exits," he said. "People like a landlord," Marcus said, "or people like a medic." "You said it," Harrow replied. "Do you carry lemon oil, Mr. Harrow?" A tiny ripple moved through the room. Harrow blinked once, then twice. "I clean my tools. And your micro-fiber cloths hum with gunshot residue when a lab sings into them." "Your lab hums whatever song you pay for," Harrow said. "Dwayne likes jazz," Marcus said deadpan. "He can tell barium from bass." He turned a page. The caller who reported a wellness check used industry phrasing. "You sell compliance." The call hit a tower that covers your coffee habit and your van's favorite nap spot and your boots. Gillian Forge Bastion model. Stamp a 5-point star that Rosa Alvarez had to scrub out of her wall. Harrow glanced down, almost unconsciously, at the heel tucked beneath the witness box rail. The court saw it even if the transcript never would. "Did you stand on the stair rail at 412 Old Briar, Mr. Harrow?" Marcus asked softly. "Did you balance the way a man balances when he wants physics to apologize for his story?" "No," Harrow said, flat, clean. Do you know a man who could? Marcus asked. A man steady enough to keep his center of gravity while a city burned below him. Counselor. Leela said, on her feet now. You're testifying. I'm turning on the mirror. Marcus said without taking his eyes off Harrow. Mr. Harrow, do you know Caleb Reed? Everyone knows Caleb, Harrow said. He's very neat. Has he ever asked you for help? Marcus asked. In August. Harrow said, he asked me to leave. And did you? Marcus said, eventually. Harrow said, and the word he chose was the wrong one, and he liked it anyway. Miriam's pen clicked vertical. There, Marcus stepped back half a pace, the way you do when approaching a pressure point you've found with your thumb and don't want to bruise before the doctor arrives. One last pane of the window, he said. When you log in as ex-admin, the system prompts a two-factor confirmation to a contractor email. You registered yours as Hollows get Briarcomp. True, it's a forwarding, Harrow said. ID puts their jokes in the field, do they? Marcus asked. Or do you like the way hollow sounds in your pocket when you're polishing metal with citrus? Leela, objection. The court, sustained as to the snark, ask a question, Mr. Hale. Marcus nodded, pen pausing above the yellow pad like a bird deciding where to land. Mr. Harrow is Hollows, your chosen handle on tenant forums you lurk on and occasionally poison. Harrow's jaw gave itself away again, a half-tick of recognition he wished were contempt. No, we'll stipulate later, Marcus said calmly. For today, tell the court why, if all you were doing was checking feeds, you logged in at the exact 2 minutes the primary camera at 4:12 went to a block of labeled nothing, and why if you were home by 12:10 you were still on Mill at 12:09 and at Baxter at 12:12. Because this city's clocks don't agree, Harrow said. Finally, Marcus said, a tiny smile in his voice, something we share. He gave the court what he'd come to give, the exhibits, the vendor affidavit, Dwayne's preliminary note. He did not give what Leela wanted, a bridge from curated darkness to a hand on a trigger. He left that span where it belonged for now, and question. When the judge recessed, the gallery exhaled like a school of fish fleeing a shape. Leela caught Marcus on the way to the rail. You move like you've got more, she said. I move like I've learned to leave a room before I explain it to death. Marcus said, what's your end game, she asked. Two truths, he said. Harrow curates dark. Caleb isn't who you want him to be. Isn't, she repeated, tasting the tense. And who do you want him to be? Innocent. Marcus said simply. Want is not the point. She looked over his shoulder to where Miriam packed the exhibits with tender speed. You know those logs give me enough to indict Harrow for tampering. They give a jury enough to doubt your simplicity. Marcus said, don't waste it by stapling my client to his heel pattern. Your client took a loop, she said. So did your contractor, he replied. One of them took it so the city wouldn't see. One took it because of a sawhorse on Juniper. You're going to bet a life on a plastic horse, Leela said. I'm going to bet it on physics, Marcus said. And on the fact that men who rehearse inevitably say the number only we were supposed to know. He left before she could decide whether to respect that or punish it. Outside, winter was a vocabulary test. Breath wrote words you could only read in cold. A man across the street touched his right pocket. Marcus's shoulders tightened until he recognized the coat. Dwayne, of all people, coming to deliver a printout by hand because the lab's network felt gossipy. Rail swabbed from the stair. Dwayne said, breath fogging. Your lemony friend isn't the only one with rituals. There's a second oil signature mixed with the limonene camellia, woodworker's oil. Some gunsmiths use it because it leaves a cleaner feel on the action. It's not common among medics. It is common among certain boutique reloaders and men who subscribe to forums with words like craft in the title. Men who like to polish the world until it agrees with them. Marcus said. Dwayne shrugged. I solder radios on weekends. Can't throw stones. Where does camellia oil get sold within walking distance of Old Briar? Marcus asked. 2 places, Dwayne said. McTeer's. Back shelf behind the beeswax, and this will make you happy. Briar Properties' own maintenance depot. They stock it for door work. Pressure point found. If the same oil lived in Harrow's pocket that lived on the rail, and if the depot sold his rituals in bulk, the mirror was about to show a face that wasn't Caleb's. Back at the office, Miriam had the depot inventory up. Camellia oil receipt. Deacon Harrow signed out 2 bottles a week before Voss died.